Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning back in. Boy, what a fortuitous time to have on the schedule the Silver Doctors and Eric Dubin from News Doctors, because on Friday we saw a major spike in the metals, and for me it was very unexpected. Guys, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be back, Sean.
Honestly, what a fortuitous time to have you on the schedule for us to talk. We're having this conversation at the end of the day on Friday. According to my charts here, I see silver up 80 cents, gold up over 24 bucks. You guys, if we have 20 more trading days like this without any major paper manipulation slams to the downside, we're going to be north of 30 in no time. What do you make of what we saw on Friday?
I think it's all in reaction to the jobs report and all the algos. If you look at silver and gold, both of them spiked higher initially, triggered some stops, and then rallied further. We're still somewhat in the trading ranges. We're talking futures contracts for gold and silver. Silver, like you said, almost up $1, back above 15, but still around the levels it was trading at only about a week ago. Gold is nice to see it move away from 1100. Looks like it was pushed back a little bit around the 1140 level. So, as you said, it's certainly a nice positive Friday for a change. Looks like the market's finally realizing that the Fed's backed themselves into a corner. It's going to be impossible to at least meaningfully raise rates at all.
Yeah, and, fellas, before we get to Steve St. Angelo's latest India versus COMEX, physical silver demand will destroy paper-rigged markets. I just want to get Eric's reaction to what we saw on Friday. Eric, were you pleasantly surprised by the action in the metals?
This is always nice to see, and it's not that surprising, actually, though, when you consider how tight the physical markets are. And we see this in the ongoing premiums, the pressure in the retail space, the talk from various mids about not continuing production for the 2015 year. So, it's really, we've gone so long in this bear phase now that a lot of production on a going forward basis is being pulled in. In Australia, it's the most severe. It's upwards of 30% reduction in the production of silver in this year on a going forward basis. So it's nice to see, but the cartel is still around. And when you were initially opening the conversation, you were talking about how we could have 30 days of this and we would be over 30. Well, that ain't going to happen, and we all know it because the cartel is still here and they're going to manage prices. But it's good to see at least some breathing space.
Yeah, and you know what, though? I deliberately started the conversation that way because I do feel like it's fortuitous that we're having this conversation on a Friday where we actually saw the metals trade. Boy, I don't know that I can say freely, but we saw the metals trade in the way they should based on all of the bad news that's out there. I just did a video the other day about Congress declaring martial law, internal martial law, congressional martial law, in order to pass unconstitutional spending bills. I mean, we're talking about a government so bankrupt they have to use martial law internally to try to keep this thing propped up because the government's bankrupt. We're $18.1 trillion in debt, and the whole world knows that the Federal Reserve is the buyer of last resort of our treasuries. China doesn't want them. Russia doesn't want them. They don't want our dollars either. And it's just a matter of time before we see precious metals trade like they did today every day. And that's just my opinion, but I think we've been talking about this for a long time, you guys. They cannot suppress this thing forever, can they?
No. We see basically a process of managing retreat, and that's what's going on now. We will see a lot higher prices on a going forward basis, but it's not going to go straight up. It's going to be an ever-present battle.
Right. I'll release this on Sunday night, and of course, probably on Monday, we'll see a slam down of 80 cents or $1 in silver. But, I do think it's okay to get excited about the precious metals when we understand that we're getting a tangible asset in physical form for less than the cost of production. And, let's talk about that SRS Rocco report piece that just came out called India versus COMEX, Physical Silver Demand Will Destroy Paper-Rigged Markets. Had you guys had a chance to read that at all?
I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I think it just came out earlier today. I'll likely be doing so soon. We just talked to Steve yesterday. Yeah, certainly the silver demand has been pretty off the charts in India. And perhaps even more importantly, what hasn't been discussed as much lately is some of his also recent analysis that Canadian and Australian mine production is down about 30% year over year, which is, in my mind, potentially even bigger factor when we go forward. I mean, those are only the two countries he analyzed, but obviously if Canada and Australia's silver production is down 30%, you can bet that U.S. and Mexico and Chile's and others is down significantly as well.
Demand across the board in Asia is really high. India now is going to probably take down more than 10,000 ounces of silver this year, and it was only January that we were looking at, say, 6,000, 7,000 ounces. So I mean, it's amazing how much India is taking in, and there's every indication. We've even had backwardation in the COMEX in silver and gold. So the market's very tight, and we're seeing it respond now, and the prices have to move up in order to ration out what limited supplies are here.
Okay.
I mean, we're even hearing stories of people considering taking 1,000-ounce bars off of COMEX and producing generic silver rounds because the premiums are just that high.
Okay. Well, and for those who hadn't read the SRS Rocco report piece that did come out on Friday, let me just read a little bit of this for you guys. If there's one chart silver investors need to see, it's the India versus COMEX chart. This chart puts into perspective just how little registered silver remains at the COMEX warehouses. In addition, COMEX registered silver inventories continue to fall as two large transfers were reported over the past 2 days. As reported by many precious metal websites, India continues to import record amounts of silver. According to Koos Jansen's article at Bullion Star, India precious metals imports explode. August gold 126 tons, silver 1,400 tons. And it goes on to report that India has overtaken the United States as the world's largest silver importer. What are you guys seeing with boots on the ground there with your business there at SD Bullion? Are you seeing the demand for physical silver outweigh the demand for physical gold to the extent that we see the silver to gold ratio be 77, 75, whatever it is? Are you seeing demand in silver that much higher than demand for gold?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, ounce to ounce, we're easily selling probably 100 to 125 to 1 silver to gold. I mean, really over the past whole 3 months, just the demand has been unprecedented, and that's whether you talk to us, any of the authorized purchasers, wholesalers in the industry. I mean, we talked to Sunshine Minting CEO Tom Bauer. They're all saying the same thing. They've never seen anything like it, and that includes 2008. We've seen premiums ease a little bit in Silver Eagles and Maples this week, and that's mainly due to all of the metal coming over from Australia from the Perth Mint Kangaroo sales. If you look at the numbers, they sold, I think it's 3.5 million ounces in 1 day last week. They sold out in 1 day. So, I mean, that's basically a whole month's Silver Eagle production. So that's why you've seen the Silver Eagle and Maple premiums ease just a bit over the last week and a half. I mean, if you look at the Perth Mint's monthly silver sales over the past 2 years, they've never had a month over 1 million ounces, averaging probably 750,000 ounces. A lot of months this year under 500,000 ounces. It was about 3.5 million ounces of silver they sold in September, which most of that, I'm going to guess, from my perspective in the market, was a single day when I think it was the 21st of September, when they released the embargo of the Perth Kangaroos here in the U.S. So that's had the effect of slightly easing the premiums on Eagles and Maples, just as finally there's an alternative of some coins that are available live. I mean, there hasn't been anything available. Any of the private mints, they're 4 to 6 to 8 weeks out. In the case of Sunshine, we talked about, they're probably 2 to 3 months out. And the same things we've been seeing with Silver Eagles and Maples. So just that 3.5 million ounces of the Perth Kangaroos available market in 1 day has helped temporarily, but I mean, those have been sold out now for 10 days, so those are all working their way through the retail chain. Once those are sold out, I think you'll see things start to tighten again.
Did the premiums on the Kangaroos go up in this pre-order period now, and that they're all sold out?
They've gone up slightly, but not to a large extent yet to retail. SD Bullion, we're still offering them for I think they have mini monster boxes, which is a unique new concept. I think 250 ounces or a monster box. We're offering them as low as $249 over spot currently in SD Bullion. And most of the main dealers are offering them for as low as under $3 over spot. So versus when you're looking at $5 to $6 plus on Silver Eagles and probably $3.50 to $4.50 on Maples, it's a pretty attractive price when you're talking live coins from an official mint.
Yeah, and just for listeners who are unaware, that new Australian kangaroo, guys, they're trying to compete with the Silver Eagle and the Maple, right? That's their new national coin. That will be the one that has unrestricted mintage, correct?
Correct. It's their new intro coin, their first inaugural release, trying to compete with the Silver Eagle and Silver Maple.
It's a beautiful coin, and I've always been such an absolute fan of the Perth Mint products. Some of the best silver investments I've ever made have been the Kookaburras. Look back at the prices, guys, on eBay or AppMex or at SD Bullion for what it would take you to get a 2008 or a 2009 or a 2010 Kookaburra. Those limited mintage coins are kind of semi-numismatics, but in this case, for $249 over spot, even if it's not a semi-numismatic, what a beautiful coin. And guys, SD Bullion, there's a banner at the top of SGT Report. There's been no sponsor who's been really more helpful to us and more loyal and a better collaborator than SD Bullion. So if you want to support us, please support them and click the banner above. Have you seen that coin in person, Doc?
Oh yeah, they're definitely beautiful. I think they're 4.9 pure silver, and they have the micro engraving security feature similar to what the Canadian Mint offers. So we're certainly selling a lot of them, and again, if nothing else, besides the fact that they're a beautiful coin, it's silver that's readily available, which is hard to find these days. And probably won't be for long, but currently it still is.
Guys, let me ask you this, and my buddy Rory has asked this question a million times. Where is the supply coming from? I mean, my gosh, you talk to Tom Bauer over at Sunshine Mint, and you know people in the industry, you have boots on the ground. You know, look what's going on with Glencore. Look what's going on with the primary silver miners. They're being absolutely decimated. Many of them are shutting down or going out of business or about to go out of business. Ultimately, where is this silver supply coming from, and when are these mints going to actually completely just run out?
Yeah, it's the $1 million question.
Well, they're rating the SLV. There are other vaults that have been rated. The amount that's in the COMEX system and the LBMA system overall in aggregate is lower. There's amount of silver that comes from just supplies that are just not accurately reported. I mean, all of those things contribute to freeing up an extra amount of silver that has been able to help the cartel facilitate their manipulation game. I mean, it isn't just pure paper because people take delivery of silver off of the LBMA in particular. So you have to have some physical to dump as well to be able to manage prices, and that's presumably where it's coming from. But no one really knows the amount that came out of SLV or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About 30 million ounces over the past 6 months have come out of the registered COMEX inventories. We were just discussing that with Steve St. Angelo yesterday, and he pointed out that it took about 4 years to build the inventory. The previous lows were about 28 million ounces in registered inventories, and over the 4-year period built up to about 75 million ounces, and that's they've burned through over 30 million ounces in the past 6 months of that.
Yeah, that's stunning. Well, the other thing that's stunning, and our listeners know it, but anybody new to this program or new to this information probably doesn't know it, and some of those listeners may be excited because they feel that they are secure in their position and that they have diversified and they do have precious metals in their portfolio in the form of SLV and GLD. And it's just stunning to lift the veil and uncover the truth and share it with the audience that the SLV ETF is a paper vehicle that is supposedly backed by physical, but the custodian is JP Morgan, and the custodian of the GLD, which is the same story as HSBC, and they're both criminal banks. They're both criminal international banks, and they're largely responsible for so many of the banking crimes that we've seen, whether it's drug money laundering or LIBOR crimes and interest rate manipulation, bail-ins, precious metals manipulation. The list is long. So anybody with SLV or GLD in their portfolio who feels like they have a good exposure to precious metals ought to think again. Don't you guys just find it stunning that this is the paradigm in which we live, that JP Morgan and HSBC control those ETFs? Is it your thesis, guys, that those ETFs were actually born into being for the purposes of manipulation? Meaning trying to stem the tide for demand for physical. Get people into paper so that there isn't so much demand for physical.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the World Gold Council is responsible for the gold GLD, and I believe that there were people there who believed that it would be a positive thing for the industry, but at the same time others would recognize that it would siphon off demand. So I think it's both.
Well, guys, let me ask you this. We've seen some dramatic news, international news, coming from a company that I'd never even heard of before, and I guess that's because it's a privately owned, or at least it was a private family-owned business until 2011 when they IPO'd it, and that's Glencore, which not too long ago was one of the top 10 largest companies on Earth. What do you guys think of the Glencore situation, and do you have any info or intel about that? Is there anything about the Glencore meltdown that concerns you?
Well, I mean, they have credit default swaps that are tied to their business lines, and so I mean, there's always a contagion risk when you're talking about a company of this size. But they, on the flip side, have a considerable amount of assets, and will probably be able to weather through this and not create some kind of a systemic hit to the marketplace overall. So there's definitely a lot of interesting fireworks, but at the same time, they'll probably be all right, and it likely will not be a catalyst that'll take down other companies in the market.
Mm-hmm. Well, fellas, let me ask you this then. As it pertains to the Big Reset, was reading Willem Middelkoop's book, The Big Reset, the other day, and Willem is saying that although it's a bit of an underground secret here in the West, the reset of the global financial system, of the global monetary system, is mainstream information in China, and of course much talked about. How many years do you think we have left in this thing when the Federal Reserve is the buyer of last resort, and guys like Willem Middelkoop are saying that the China are actively moving toward and working with the IMF on a new global currency and a new global financial system because they feel trapped by the dollar? Any thoughts on that? I mean, are we thinking 2016, 2017, 2018, like The Economist magazine suggested back in 1988, get ready for a new world currency in 2018?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to definitely see the dollar no longer the status of a sole reserve currency within, say, like 5 years guaranteed, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But it probably is going to be a heck of a lot faster. 18 months would be where I would say 60-some-odd% probability that the dollar is going to take a big hit. I'm not in the camp that believes that it's going to change overnight or over a weekend kind of thing. I think we'll see periods of punctuated evolution where you'll see the dollar lose a lot of its purchasing power in spurts, and it takes a lot for a currency to move from 58% or so of reserve status deposits to 30-some-odd%, and I think that that's what we're going to see in the next couple of years. So they'll have a pretty significant impact to purchasing power and the relative power of the yuan versus the dollar.
And I would just add that I think a lot of people in our universe, if you would, really just have the mentality, let's get on with it. We've been waiting for this since 2007, 2008. I mean, and I can certainly understand that thinking, but I think we're all going to find out that we really don't want what's coming, and need to be thankful for every single day we have that it doesn't arrive yet.
Yeah. No, you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. I've said it a million times. I think the collapse is going to be far worse than most people think. And even those of us who sort of believe that we're prepared to some degree and should be compensated for our efforts with higher precious metals prices are going to have a very, very difficult time in the paradigm that's to come, because by all accounts, it looks like they are planning, with Agenda 21 policies and so many of the other globalist agendas, they are getting the American people ready for poverty, essentially. And that's, of course, what happens when a currency crashes. The people whose currency that was end up poor. I mean, look what's going on in Argentina, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. Look what happened in the Weimar Republic. It's a story as old as time. And, most of our friends, neighbors, and colleagues are still clueless. That's the part that gets me. I mean, I really can't understand how at this point people can still be sound asleep and think that this dollar paradigm can go on another 40, 50 years, or in their minds forever. It's really stunning.
Unfortunately, it's just going to take pain for America to wake up, and that's where we are. Changes are coming, and hopefully once things start moving along, that people will take better control of their financial lives and protect themselves.
Yeah. Well, the worst part for the future of our country, though, is that, okay, with 46 million people already on food stamps and what is it, 96 million people out of the workforce? Is that what I saw? There's a Zero Hedge headline I saw earlier today. Yeah, here it is. They just don't want a job. The Fed's grotesque explanation why 94.6 million people are out of the labor force. Yeah, and isn't that the rub? I mean, the problem is if they make us poor, if they bring us to our knees, we'll be unable to fight back, And at the end of the day, that is the scariest thesis I can think of, is bringing America and the people in this country to their knees because they weren't prepared, they didn't know, they don't know what a central bank is, they don't know what the Federal Reserve has done, they don't understand what fiat money is, they don't understand what real money is, and as a consequence, they're going to be left penniless and poverty-stricken, and that'll make it real hard for us to take our government back, and I think real hard for us to retain liberty. I think what I'd like to leave people with on this call, guys, is John Williams had said back in 2011 that the 1980 inflation-adjusted all-time high for silver was $138, and because of all the money printing just since 2011, John Williams is now saying that the 1980 inflation-adjusted all-time high for silver in today's dollars is $601 an ounce. And, a lot of people, guys, will say, well, who would want to live in a world where silver's $1,000 an ounce? Well, I'd counter that by saying, if silver were allowed to trade freely, it wouldn't be a big deal for silver to be at $500 or $600 an ounce, because look at palladium when it was up at $800, $900, $1,000 an ounce. Nobody knows, nobody cares, and they were still making catalytic converters, but people were still buying cars. I mean, this precious metals market is invisible to most of the sheeple people out there. They don't even pay attention to it, do they?
Yeah,
no, certainly don't.
And there's probably like only 1.2% or so of assets under management in North America that are in the precious metals market. It's quite tiny.
Yeah, and Eric, out of those folks that are in or think that they're in the precious metals market, how many of those folks are really in paper vehicles as opposed to physical? I mean, it's probably a much even smaller percentage in physical, huh?
Yeah, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it is significantly skewed towards people in paper. So well over 2/3 are probably in paper.
Well, guys, I just want to thank you so much for your time. It's always great to get you on, get a boots-on-the-ground precious metals update. Of course, the Doc is running SD Bullion, sdbullion.com. Doc, tell us a little bit about your site and how people can protect themselves, will you?
Certainly. Site's sdbullion.com, so they can purchase physical gold or silver there at SD Bullion. You can check out our weekly radio show, Metals and Markets, on the News Doctors or Silver Doctors, as well. Then Silver Doctors kind of focus more on precious metals, and over on the News Doctors, there's a category for that. Eric also does a better job of keeping up with all the political happenings and geopolitics of the world as well.
Well, and speaking of that, Eric, before I let you go, I just have to ask you, what were your thoughts on that Oregon quote-unquote massacre that occurred on Thursday? And within literally hours, President Obama was on the national airwaves calling quite vocally for gun control and more common sense gun laws. What'd you make of that?
Well, it never leave a good crisis unexploited. I mean,
that's right.
The agenda to go after guns is pretty strong, and they're going to continue to barrel after guns. I mean, whatever crisis is around, they exploit, and that's just the way it is. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I wrote about that too because I watched Obama's speech live and then wrote about it. It seems to me that guys like Cass Sunstein were probably beaming that particular day, feeling really good about themselves. And it's just crazy times in which we live. And you report about all of it over at News Doctors, don't you?
Yeah, we cover a huge amount of information, and it's thenewsdoctors.com. It has the article in front of it, so when people are looking for it, type in thenewsdoctors.com.
Okay, very good. Guys, if you want to support us, please do click the banner above, right at the top of SGT Report. Get some silver and gold from sdbullion.com. And, of course, you can see Eric's great work over at thenewsdoctors.com. And our guests have been Eric Dubin and the Doc from Silver Doctors. Gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Sean.
Always a pleasure. And guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and thanks for supporting us at sgtreport.com and thelibertymill.com. Real news 24/7. God bless.